There's a ton of noise out there. So how do you get decision makers to pay attention to your brand? Start a podcast and invite your ideal clients to be guests on your show. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. We're here today with Ray Coppinger. He is the Director of Marketing at Teamwork. Ray, how's it going today?
Doing really well, Logan. Thanks so much.
Hey, well, thank you for being on the show, Ray. Really excited to be able to do this interview with you. We had some scheduling conflicts before, so really glad that you and I are getting a chance to record this because I'm really excited for you to share the insights that you guys gathered through somewhat of a unique survey of modern marketing leaders. Before we do that, Ray, I would love for you to share with our audience a little bit of background on yourself and maybe what you and the team at Teamwork are up to these days.
Absolutely, Logan. And just to say thanks so much for having us on. Been a big fan of the podcast for quite a while, so really excited to be here. My own background, Logan, is I've been in B2B marketing for the last 15 years. In my last role before Teamwork, I worked at Marketo, so I'm very much coming from that MarTech bubble and living within that kind of MarTech space. So it's been really exciting to move into a traditional MarTech company, but which still has application within the marketing community. In my role at Teamwork today, I'm heading up the marketing team. And it's really exciting because the company is on a really high growth kind of trajectory at the moment. I suppose just to give a little bit of background, at teamwork.com, we build SaaS products for teams of all types. And look, our vision as a company is to make teams all around the world more efficient, organized, and effective. We have been in business for the last 11 years. We've grown to 24,000 paying customers globally, and we have customers all the way up to the likes of Disney. And then we kind of scale down to smaller businesses as well using some of our products. Just finally, to kind of round off, Logan, currently we have 3 products in our suite. Teamwork Projects is a tool which is a work management, project management collaboration platform, which is used by thousands of marketing teams across the world. And I think that's probably has most resonance or relevance to the audience that we have today. We have 3 today. And then in Q1 2019, we're launching 2 more products into our suite. And we hope to grow that suite up to 10 products within the next 3 years. So lots of growth, lots of exciting things, and excited to share a little bit of our research today.
Yeah, well, it definitely sounds like there's exciting things going on with you and your team, Ray. So really excited to hear your insights here. And the topic we're going to be talking about today and the components that make up a really successful marketing team are things that were actually sourced through this survey that you guys collaborated with Jay Baer on, went to a lot of modern CMOs and marketing leaders and asked them some questions on this topic. So tell us a little bit about how this project got started and where you guys went with it before we get into some of the findings. Would love to hear some of the background on how this came to be.
Yeah, absolutely, Logan. So I think the survey came out of a collaboration as you mentioned with Jay Baer. I think we wanted to explore, obviously we're coming from teamwork.com. We have a really kind of vested interest in, really understanding and being thought leaders in the whole concept of teamwork. And as I said, lots of our customers are marketing teams or creative teams. So what we wanted to kind of understand is, let's go to the thought leaders within the marketing space. And let's hear what they believe are the characteristics or traits of the best marketing teams they've either run or been a part of. So what we wanted to do with Jay was kind of reach out to some of the, I suppose, foremost CMOs who are currently working today And we were really lucky. We had 9 kind of CMOs and marketing leads kind of help us out with this survey and research. And I think we've got a compelling set of secrets or kind of traits which they've come back and which have clearly kind of come out in what the surveys that Jay helped us put together.
Mm-hmm. And each one of them, was basically responding with things that they found effective for building a team and also components of great teams that they've been a part of. So really excited to dive in. The first one that kind of came out, bubbled up to the surface was hiring for cultural fit. So tell us a little bit about what the findings were around this point, Ray.
So with this one, I think what was really interesting, and what I'll do maybe, Logan, I might just kind of talk through some of the responses from some of those marketing leaders as well. But maybe before I get to that, one of the things, and me and Jay talked about this, was, here at teamwork.com, what we do, we have a set of core values in our organization. We have 6 core values. And what we do in terms of our hiring process and then our performance reviews afterwards is really hire and measure performance around those core values. So when we're doing interviews with people, we're assessing them against the 6 core values. And if that individual then is successful within getting the role within teamwork.com, our quarterly and annual performance reviews are all based around those core values. And I think just for us, in kind of the bubble here at teamwork.com, that's a really effective way of hiring for cultural fit. But just to kind of maybe give some of the other leaders' points of view on this, it was really interesting. It really strongly came across that cultural fit was one of the most important things. Peter Bell, who heads up the marketing team for Marketo in the EMEA region, his take was that, he believes that the most important thing is cultural fit, because basically he feels he can train for the skills that marketers need nowadays, but getting the person who fits in the organization and can work as part of the team was absolutely critical. So I think that was kind of an interesting one. Jeff Rohrs, who is the CMO at Yext, he was talking about, he wanted people who were kind of fearless in, the face of change, can work on multiple projects without getting overwhelmed. So again, that's that kind of idea of bringing in the people who can adapt to the culture within an organization and not get phased by kind of the very busy environments that they're working in.
Yeah, and each one of those are going to be a little bit different, but knowing the culture that you're hiring into is kind of the starting point there, right? You've got to know what you're trying to match to. I think that's great, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then just a final one, Logan, for you on this, David Kane, who's the CMO at PlanGrid. I think, he is, again, tying back to this concept of, teamwork, and, he kind of just, his statement was he's a big believer in the power of the team. He kind of tries to avoid people who are very much about promoting themselves, and he wants people who basically, they don't want to kind of advance themselves in kind of, at the cost of the bigger picture. So it's really about getting people who will plug into a team that he's creating and then deliver value through the others he's working with or around.
I love that. We've talked about that a lot on our team in hiring for cultural fit, that, you can kind of tweak the positions and shuffle people around in the seats on the bus, as long as, there's an overall fit, and you can change those around if you're starting on the right foot and there is, that cultural fit to fall back on. This next one you wanted to share, Ray, I think is a good segue from that, in making success metrics transparent. So you bring people in that are a good fit for your culture. Now, how do you make, success metrics transparent so that, there's an ongoing good vibe of the culture and people feel rewarded, engaged, and have an opportunity to succeed. So tell us a little bit more about what were the findings from some of these CMOs and marketing leaders on this point.
Yep. So this one I think is very near and dear to my heart as well, Logan, just in terms of, marketing metrics. I know it's something which there's a lot written about. It's a very popular topic within the marketing world in terms of people creating content around this. I think, the general idea here is that, marketing teams have, we have in our own team here, we have kind of multiple sub teams. We have the demand gen team, we have the product marketing team, the corporate team, the marketing operations team. And I think the general kind of sense from the marketing leaders is that, each kind of B2B marketing team member has to understand, not just what they're measuring, not whether it's pipeline or opportunities or SQLs or MQLs, but they need to understand how they're doing it and ultimately why they're doing it as well. And I think that kind of really was critical. Karen Steele, who's the CMO at Lean Data, she kind of said that basically all the team members have to be clear on what the scoreboard is, and then have kind of real-time access to seeing that scoreboard, to see how they're tracking week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter, to kind of really assess as a marketing team, are they driving the results that they're ultimately measured on? And, from a personal perspective, I've worked in marketing teams where success metrics weren't transparent. And I think it is a huge blocker to people doing their best work, and people, really being able to kind of prioritize their work towards the things which have the most impact.
Today's growth story is all about search engine marketing. The company we're highlighting is SentinelOne. This challenger cybersecurity brand was set out to disrupt the endpoint protection space. Their brand was top-notch, their product was innovative, but they were struggling to gain traction online in an already developed industry. Then they found Directive Consulting, a B2B search marketing agency. Within the first quarter of working with Directive, SentinelOne was able to increase their organic traffic by 128%, and overall lead volume by an outstanding 251%. Now, I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
This next one, just coming off of the Flip My Funnel conference, where there were a ton of marketing and sales people, a lot of great names on both sides of the house. There was even, a family feud interaction between a marketing team and a sales side. This topic of aligning with sales seems like we can't talk about it enough, and interested to see that it made yet another list here of what the top CMOs are talking about that make for successful marketing teams. So what did they have to say about marketing and sales alignment, Ray?
Yeah, I kind of, when I saw this come through in the survey, Logan, and you'll know this having worked in kind of in the B2B marketing space for a good while now, it kind of makes every list, doesn't it? It's one of those kind of, it's the no-brainer one. But I think, it's really worth highlighting this because, again, based on personal experience and seeing, marketing teams in action, it's something just which needs constant love and care and attention to make sure that that relationship is strong. I think just in terms of some of the things that were coming out, Tim Kopp, his take was that, marketing a lot of times gets sucked into the activity bubble or the activity trap, which is, looking at channels and just doing busy work, but really kind of forgetting about, how does this align with what sales are trying to do? I think the thing that which came out clear pretty much from everybody was sales are, in the B2B world anyway, sales are marketing's kind of primary customer. And I think that's a mindset marketers absolutely need to have. So I think some of the things that came out in terms of practical things, which I think are really interesting, Jeff Rohrs, he said that marketing have to be listening into sales calls. They need to get a deeper level of understanding of what's going on in a sales opportunity so that they can add value along the way to those opportunities being created. But I think, the main takeaway I think I came out with from this section, I think, Logan, was, just in terms of marketing, getting into the detail of what sales do day to day. Again, just some practical examples here, teamwork. We rotate people over to the sales team to sit alongside them to do a day in sales, shadowing people, understanding what the life of a salesperson does. We're doing some customer visits next month, and I'm going to be flying out with our head of customer engagement to sit and listen to what customers are doing with the sales team. You're just really kind of understanding we can bring that back and bring that into everything we're doing in marketing.
Yeah, I think that is unbelievably impactful with, not only having your team sit alongside sales, listen to sales calls, do a day in the life of sales, as you put it. I love that. I was recently on a previous episode of this show talking with Mark Smith, the VP of sales at Womply, and he was talking about the importance of sales people sitting down and being able to empathize with their prospective clients and people that fit their buyer persona. And as you mentioned, mentioned sales being the primary internal customer of marketing. There goes a long way when there's that understanding and empathy, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. The next thing, Ray, we were talking about before we hit record on this was, prioritizing projects and tying them to business goals. So I have to think some of this has to come back with, sales and marketing alignment a little bit because, prioritizing projects, like you said, making sure that they're not busy work, that they're actually tied to revenue. But curious to hear what some of the top CMOs are talking about on this point.
Yeah, this was really interesting as well. I think Tim Kopp, who was previously the CMO at Exact Target, and he's run some really big, I guess, marketing teams and functions. But what Tim said, it was really interesting. He said that like within 18 months, what kind of gets and kills a lot of CMOs is effectively knowing how to prioritize their work, and which I think is really interesting. I think the average lifetime of a CMO is about 24 to 36 months. So I think it's interesting that, Tim is identifying kind of that ability to prioritize work, I think is something which is a really challenging part of being a CMO nowadays. And, I think we see that day to day, again, seeing kind of and working with other marketing leaders, it is really difficult to know what work is the most kind of impactful, what is the most, the highest priority. I think, this one ties, like you said, to pretty much some of the other points we talked about, the alignment with sales, the ability to kind of have success metrics clearly defined and available. And I think what Tim says is that you kind of need to figure out sequentially, how you're going to, pick out the biggest pieces of work, keep them prioritized, and then knock them down. And his take is that it's part art, part science. And I think I kind of agree with that. And again, not to kind of reiterate things, but he talks about this idea of getting blinded by tactics, not getting sucked into that busy work kind of syndrome as well. I think the other part of this, I guess, in terms of prioritization is, if you have the right metrics in place, if you have the right technology stack in terms of managing your work, managing the priorities. Here at Teamwork, we have this quarterly, I suppose it's goal setting, or we call them rocks. So every quarter we set, 5 or 6 rocks as a company, and then within each team they have their rocks for the quarter. And that's a good way, I think, of making sure that you are working towards things which don't shift. Once you have set a rock for the quarter, you continue to work on that until it's done. But yeah, this is a really big one, and technology can help. But as Tim says, it is part art as well. There is a kind of an art to this, being good at this.
Yeah. Well, the next thing kind of flows from that made this list, Ray, providing real-time feedback. As you're setting up your teams, this is the goal. This is what we're rowing towards. This is the goal that's not going to change. What do you do in the meantime to make sure that you're helping people stay on course and you're, it's still promoting a good culture internally, keeping people motivated and feeling good about their work? So tell us a little bit about what marketing leaders had to say about providing real-time feedback to their team throughout, their marketing team themselves.
Yeah, I think what you just said there, because it was interesting, Logan, in terms of, I think it is about leading here, and, providing real-time feedback is, I think it's a skill of a great leader, is to be able to identify that, and some of the leaders that we've talked to call this out, this idea that, doing a quarterly or annual review to give feedback, in today's world is, it's obviously, fairly ineffective in some ways. Obviously it's a useful mechanism, but I guess it's come through strongly from a lot of the leaders that in the moment feedback, Robin Ituli calls it a gift. And I think I'd strongly agree with that. Peter Bell said, he just again calls out the same thing, which is, bottling feedback up so you can, provide it at a quarterly or semi-annual or biannual kind of cadence is just not really effective nowadays. And I think that is really true. And I think it is about helping people develop, being able to provide feedback in a candid way, but also in a way which allows them to kind of react in real time and adjust and actually improve or make corrections to what people are doing. I think is really, really important. And I think it's another one. And just maybe to call this out, Logan, as we look back through, the 5 kind of traits or characteristics of great teams, we're not talking about technology, talking about ability to use technology or skills. A lot of this is softer stuff. It's about, being able to work as part of a team. It's about to give and receive feedback. it's about being able to align and partner with other teams. So I think that's a really interesting thing here. It's none of the technical skills, which we talk a lot about. It's not about the data skills. It's about the human skills, which are really coming out here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely see that, as a common theme. And in this last one you were just talking about, right, in providing real-time feedback, there's the human element. Not only do we expect, real-time instant gratification with feedback because of the pace at which everything else moves around us, right? Like we can look at our bank account and we know exactly how much money is. We don't wait for a month-end statement anymore. Why should we wait for a month-end for feedback from our manager, right? And then it's also not as applicable when it's not coming in the moment. It's a little bit tougher to apply it. And so a lot of these things, as you touched on a little bit in one of the respondents talking about, that there's a lot of art to each one of these, but I think that they're all ones that, marketing leaders of teams large and small could walk away and figure out, how do I break these down in my specific context for my team. I think you've provided 5 really great points that do make for successful marketing teams, and the fact that these are leading CMOs in the marketing space talking about these things. I really appreciate you sharing some of these findings. I think it's interesting the way that you guys tackled this study. Ray, if anybody listening to this would like to follow up with you, read more of the information in this study that you guys compiled, or just stay connected with you, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, Logan, for walking through those with me. In terms of connecting with me, I'm on LinkedIn. You can catch me on Twitter at Ray Cop is my handle. And, if you want to check out Teamwork, just teamwork.com. You can get access to the ebook, which kind of goes through the points we just touched on. And I'd be happy to kind of continue the conversation on any of those channels.
Awesome. Well, Ray, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your expertise with our audience. Really glad we got a chance to do this, man.
Thanks, Logan. Really appreciate it.
Becoming a thought leader doesn't just happen. If you want to build a strong personal brand and extend your reach online and offline, you need a plan. Want help developing yours? Check out Impact Summit. This one-day event is bringing together best-selling authors, professional athletes, influential CEOs, and emerging entrepreneurs, all for one purpose: to equip you to lead, influence, and inspire. Whether you're looking to build a lasting legacy with your business or extend the reach of your brand, Impact Summit speakers will share inspiring stories and practical lessons to help you on your way. Did we mention a session on launching and growing a podcast? You guessed it. You'll hear from Sweetfish Media's own James Carberry during that session. You won't want to miss all of these influencers and leaders coming together in Salt Lake City on October 13th. Ready to learn more? Check out influencerinc.co/Impact Summit. B2B Growth listeners can get 15% off the price of their tickets for this event by using the promo code SWEETFISH, SWEETFISH. So use that code, get your tickets today, and get ready to grow your brand and your influence at Impact Summit 2018.